Okay, hi students. So today we are going to talk about the past progressive tense. So that just means it's how we talk about an action, something that you do that was happening in the past when another action happened in the past. So even though we're using a progressive verb, right? We use the ing, it just means that what we're talking about when we make it past tense is that all of it happened in the past, right? And it isn't happening now. Um, and so that's why we use the past progressive, because when we use the present progressive, it means that something happened in the past and continues now. But when we use past progressive, it means that something happened in the past and it ended in the past, right? It was going on and it was happening, but it stopped before the present. So why do we use past progressive? So we add ing, right, the ing sound, at the end of a verb to tell us that the action is continuing, right? So when we say I am walking, right, it means that it's something that you started and it keeps happening, right? You started walking and you keep going. And we can change am, is, and are, right? The things that we use when we make present progressive. We can change them to a past tense, which is was or were, and we use it to tell people that the action kept going, right? But it happened in the past. Because when we use simple past, it means that an action happened, but it stopped right there. It happened and it ended in the past. And when we use past progressive tense, it means that we're saying, okay, something happened and it kept going and it was happening and then it stopped, but it stopped in the past. So I was walking is past progressive tense. So I'm going to show you how, like, the difference between present progressive and past progressive. So you'll see that this one says, I am walking to work. To make it past, the only thing that we change about it to make it past is we say was instead of am. I was walking to work. She is taking the bus. To change is to past tense and make it past progressive tense, we say she was taking the bus. And you need to remember the ing to make it a progressive tense, right? We are going to a meeting changes to we were going to a meeting. They are leaving work changes to they were leaving work, right? Were is past tense, are is present. He is feeling sad. He was feeling sad. So he is feeling sad is saying that he is feeling sad and it keeps happening and it's happening in the present now, right? And it keeps going. But when we say he was feeling sad, it means that he started feeling sad and he kept feeling sad. And then it stopped before the present, before right now. So it just means that, like, oh, in the past, before now, before it could be before right now, before today, um, just saying in the past, he was feeling sad, meaning it's like taking the progressive present and just picking it up and putting it in the past. That's all it really is you're talking about something that was happening and it kept happening, but it's in the past, right? So that's why we use it. So, oh, sorry, I yawned. How to make the past progressive. So this is really easy. We've talked about this before. You need to use a pronoun or a person or a thing for your subject. So we can use I, you, he, she, it, we, or they, right? Right over here. And we just use it as the first, it's what we start it with to make it. So we say I, for example, I, and we know that we say I am. If you say you, it's you are. If you say he or she or it, you use is. If you say we or they, you can use are, right? And then, but when we need to change them to past tense, it's either was or were, which is easy to remember. It's not 3, it's just 2. So am is to change it into the past, it's was, is turns into was, and are, the past tense, is were. So instead of saying I am, we say I was. And to make the progressive verb, remember that we take a verb and add an ing. So we take the simple present verb, take, right? And we add ing, taking. I was taking the bus to work is the sentence that we make into past progressive because we used the past of am, is, or are, and we used a ing verb, a progressive or continuous verb, taking. So now we need to change the present progressive to past progressive. This is just for practice. They were helping me learn English. So they are helping me learn English turns into, if we want to say they were, it's what they kept doing in the past. They were helping me learn English. We are driving to California. So that means that we are driving to California. It keeps happening. But if you said we were driving to California, it would mean it happened in the past. We were driving to California. My coworkers are leaving early. Turns into my coworkers were leaving early. Now, using past progressive tense. So I showed you how to make it, right? And the way that we use past progressive tense, a lot of native English speakers will use it a lot when they don't really need to. They can use another tense to talk about it. But mainly, the reason that we use it is to, when we use the past progressive, it's when something started and kept happening in the past, right? So something started in the past and it kept happening, and then it's interrupted by another thing in the past. So that's one of the reasons why we use it. So for example, if we said, I was walking to my car when I saw my friend. So the reason we use the past progressive right here is to let people know that you're focusing on the fact that something was happening continuously. Something was going on, right? Something was happening when something else happened, right? That's what we're focusing on. And the reason we use it is because we're trying to tell people that it happened in the past. So if we use the present progressive, it doesn't really let people know that the actions already happened. They happened in the past. So we use the past progressive because we're talking about something that was going on that kept happening in the past, and then another thing happened, but that thing that happened was still in the past. So you have this thing going on, and then you have another thing happen, and it's all in the past. So for example, I was walking to my car. It means that they were walking to their car and then they saw their friend. And that's why we use it. We say, okay, this thing was happening, right? And then we say, oh, and then this other thing happened. And that's why we use the past progressive tense. So we use it to talk about an action in the past that was stopped or changed because of something else that happened in the past. So I was taking the bus. So we're talking about the past. I was taking the bus. I was on the bus. I was sitting on the bus when I started to feel sick. So that means that another thing happened in the past that is related to the thing that was happening. And the reason we say it this way is the first part we say, I was taking, right? Was lets us know that it was the past. The ing lets us know at the end of the verb taking, lets us know that that verb is continuous. It was happening, right? It wasn't just it happened and it stopped. It was going on. It was happening. And then, so we know that it was the past because we say was. We know that it kept happening, right? And then the second part, we just use the simple past tense. I was taking the bus when I started to feel sick. So the first part is the action that we want to focus on that was happening, that was going on in the past. And then we say, and then this happened. We use the simple past tense because that's the thing that happened and stopped the other thing that was happening. We can also use it when we respond to a question. So if somebody uses the past progressive tense, but they ask you a question in that past progressive tense, you can answer back in the past progressive tense. So if somebody says, what were you doing? They're saying, what were you doing? What was happening what were you doing in the past, right? Instead of saying, what are you doing, which is present. So to answer, what were you doing? You could say, oh, I was coming back from my break, right? So you can just answer with past progressive tense as well. So I just wanted to show you how you can use this to describe something that was happening and it got interrupted or stopped or changed because of another thing that happened. So for example, you could say, oh, I was driving to work, because you're talking to somebody right now on the phone. Say you were talking to your boss and you're late for work. What you would say is, I was driving to work and I got a flat tire. The reason you say was and not am is because when you say I am driving to work, it means that you are doing it right now in the moment and you are still going to do it, right? But if you say I was driving to work, it means that you were doing that action in the past. So you were driving and you were doing it in the past, and I got a flat tire. Boom, something else happened that stopped or changed the other action from keeping it going. So they were working, but they went home sick. So again, you'll see that you use the simple past tense for the second part, or not for the second part, but for the action that changed or stopped the first action that was happening, right? They were working, but they went home sick. It stopped them, right? What were you doing? Somebody could ask you that. What were you doing? And you could say, oh, I was going to the store. So for example, your like boyfriend or your girlfriend or your whoever, your family member, they keep trying to call you and you don't pick up, and finally you pick up the phone and they say, what were you doing? You could say, oh, I was going to the store, right? Because it was something that was happening that isn't happening now because you were able to pick up your phone. But it's not happening now, but it was happening. So that's why we use was going, because was means it's in the past, and going means that the verb was happening. It kept going. It kept doing it. Okay. So the next part that we're going to talk about, I think we're getting to the part where we talk about how to make questions, and my computer is being a little bit slow. So let me fix it really quick. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some common mistakes that you can make, right? So just mistakes that sometimes you can make that are easy to make, that native English speakers make sometimes. So you could say, when I got my first job, right, I live in Los Angeles. Now, it kind of makes sense, right? Why we say I was live, but we need to say I was living. Because you say, when I got my first job, you're talking, you say got, right? Which is the past tense of get. So it means that an action happened in the past. Something happened. You got your first job. That happened. But when that happened, you were living in Los Angeles, right? So that would be the correct way to say it is when I got my first job, that's the thing that happened. I was living in Los Angeles. That's the action that kept going, right? Because you can't say I was live. You have to say I was living, right? Because living is continuous, right? It's something that you keep doing. I used to vacuum. Or I used to. I used the vacuum. Sorry, this says I used the vacuum. Then I was putting it away. Now this is incorrect because if you said I used the vacuum, it kind of makes sense, right? Because you used the vacuum and then you were putting it away. You were doing the action. But you need to say, I used the vacuum because you used it. Then I put it away. It's something that you completed. It's something that you finished, right? I used the vacuum, then I put it away. That's the correct one. Now, making past progressive tense negative, so meaning like we're trying to say no. So we just put not in between were or was and the verb that we're using, the ing verb, the progressive verb, driving. We were not driving to work. That's how you make it negative. So you just put this word not in between this word were and driving, the verb. So we're going to make the sentences negative. The people were standing in line. How do we make it negative? The people were not standing in line. The vacuum was working. The vacuum was not working. My daughter was moving to Utah. My daughter was not moving to Utah. My car was working. My car was not working. That's how we make it negative. So making past progressive tense into questions. How do we turn them into questions? They were walking to the cafeteria, right? Now, to make this part a question, all we do is switch the subject and then the word were or was. Were they walking to the cafeteria? So they were walking to the cafeteria changes to were they walking to the cafeteria? The sink was working. To change it, right, we put the word was or were at the beginning of the sentence in front of the subject, which is, in this sentence, the sink. Was the sink working? And we turned it into a question. Now let's make these questions. You were making dinner tonight. Were you making dinner tonight? There was enough toilet paper. Was there enough toilet paper? They were going to lunch. To make it a question, were they going to lunch? Your phone was working. Was your phone working? And that's how you make it questions. So that's it for today.